Poles need Britain, and Britain needs Poles, yet Poles are leaving Britain. What's going on? The life of the everyday Pole was changed forever when Poland joined the European Union in 2004, and its citizens were granted the right of free movement. Essentially, they could travel without restrictions to other EU member states. From 2004 until 2020, this also meant the United Kingdom, which formally exited the alliance during Brexit. Still, Poles started flooding the UK and quickly became its largest migrant population, with some reports suggesting that there were over 1 million Poles living in the UK. But then Brexit happened, and slowly, one by one, Poles started to move out of the country. Or were they driven out? Besides the occasional headline, Poles living in Britain and their everyday life was unchallenged. Once the results of the 2016 referendum were read out, there was a spike in hate crimes. Britain was losing Poles by the minute, and the majority wanted stricter immigration policies anyway. This just meant that they were getting what they asked for, yet the UK was worse off without Poles than it was with them. This was something that shocked Leave campaigners, but had they asked an economist, any of them, they would have said that this was expected. Again, Poles needed Britain, and Britain needed Poles. Let's talk about why. Why are Poles leaving home? Immigration has been a hotly debated topic around the world. The United Kingdom joined the conversation in 2016 during the Brexit referendum, with a majority strongly opposed to the idea of allowing immigrants and refugees into the country. The argument posed was this: we need to look after ourselves before we welcome anyone in. The argument surprisingly swayed the majority during the 2016 referendum, with 51% of the population announcing an end to the free movement. So it was decided, if anyone wanted to come into the United Kingdom, they'd have to do it the old-fashioned way. That is, they'd have to apply for a visa if it was applicable. The ease of travel to and from the UK and other EU member states had ceased. But what did that mean for the Polish community? You see, Eastern and Central European migrants outnumbered any other European population when it came to immigration. With Poland joining the EU in 2004, they were allowed to seek better opportunities for themselves elsewhere. Germany was an attractive prospect, and to put this into context, there are over 784,000 Poles living in Germany. These numbers were from 2023 and shot up a whole 1.4% since 2022, when there were 773,368 Poles. Another attractive prospect has been the United Kingdom, where official estimates suggest that there are over 700,000 Poles. An unofficial estimate suggests these numbers are up to 1 million. The ONS revealed that 1 in 3 people among the population of the UK was born outside of the country. It'd also be fair to assume that most of them are Poles, since Polish is the second most spoken language in England and third most overall in the United Kingdom. To summarize everything we've just covered, the Polish diaspora is real, and it increased after accession into the European Union, whereafter many Poles emigrated to the United Kingdom. The why of it all is very easy to tell: to seek better employment opportunities and a chance to live a higher quality of life. While there might be several Poles back home who negate the argument that anything's wrong, there are just as many living outside of Poland who claim that life was harder back home. This can be due to a multitude of reasons, but political corruption and systemic injustice would be on the top of the list. According to Transparency International and its Global Corruption Barometer, Poland ranks 47 out of 180 countries as the most corrupt globally. On the barometer, Poland scored 54 by 100. By comparison, the United Kingdom scored 71. Yes, the lower score, the more corrupt the nation. In fact, 57% of the population of Poland believed that corruption was the single most pressing issue in the country. Another 37% believed that corruption had actually gone up from 2022 to 2023. 10% of the population claimed that they had to pay a bribe in the last 12 months, at least to a government official. Corruption, however, is one reason. If we were to list them down, go over them one by one, and then work on solutions to fix the issue, this video might never end. So, to put it in simpler terms, the Polish diaspora was exasperated by several issues, and leaving home became a much more viable option once Poland joined the EU in 2004. On the other hand, what we should be wondering is, how has this affected Poland? How has the mass influx of hard-working Poles, a major chunk of its labor force and skilled workers, affected things back home? Seemingly, emigration can never be good. The more obvious take here is that a population that could have otherwise worked towards making a country more prosperous has now exited to fulfill that role somewhere else. To be fair, that is a highly likely situation, and emigration hasn't always been a favored topic. Yet the Polish diaspora is at the highest in the world, and yet it is a cause for concern. But economics are never straightforward like that. In this case, too, Polish immigration might just be the best thing to have ever happened to Poland. The way how might be a little convoluted, but the benefits of emigration are there. Think about it this way. What would happen if a person leaves Poland and immigrates to the UK? It'd be fair to say that this person would be fairly younger, considering Poland's youth unemployment rate in 2023. It was at 11.58%. While that number is concerning, it's a lot less so than the 39.99% that peaked charts globally in 2004. So people are getting more work in Poland, even if there are more people leaving the country. One reason why the numbers went down would be because of emigration, and another would be the wage push. That is, because the pool of workers in Poland has decreased. There are now more opportunities for people who stayed back. In fact, it'd be safe to say that the Poland we know today isn't the one that existed 2 decades ago. There have been large-scale changes in the nation, and the backbone would be the labor force, those who stayed and were able to get higher-paying jobs because of those who left. Besides wage pushes, another more obvious way immigration has helped Poland is remittance. That is, money that immigrants send back home to their families. Remittances increase the purchasing power of families, helping drive demand for local goods and services, which can create jobs and foster small business growth. But it also provides a direct inflow of foreign currency, boosting household incomes and enhancing consumer spending, which stimulates local economies. These funds are often used for essential needs like education, healthcare, and housing, improving living standards and contributing to human capital development. Money sent back home can contribute to broader microeconomic stability by strengthening foreign exchange reserves, which helps countries manage external debt and balance of payment issues. This stability could encourage foreign investment and support long-term growth, so even if they're not their purse, Poles are helping Poland in more ways than you'd imagine. The list doesn't end there either. Another way the Polish diaspora is actually helping Poland is by extending the influence of Poles all around the world. To put this into perspective, there's a little Poland in the United Kingdom that's officially known as Boston. Between 2004 and 2011, the foreign-born population of this sleepy East Midlands town shot up by 46.7%. Besides the fact that this meant more Poles had started settling in the UK, it also meant that they were bringing their tradition and culture with them. So what happens in Boston on January the 2nd, or Święto Church Crowley, better known as Epiphany? Polish migrants celebrate their culture, and they do so by buying authentic Polish goods, many of which are only available back home. Boston is one example. There have been estimates that suggest over 120,000 Poles live in London alone. This again means that Polish holidays and Polish traditions are celebrated with goods imported from Poland. Businesses that cater exclusively to Poles have also sprouted in the United Kingdom after business owners noticed that they had a large demographic of buyers. Polish people want Polish things, and Poland was ready to oblige since the exports boosted its economy. It's a win-win situation. Speaking of which, the Polish diaspora has caused the government to reevaluate its goals. Why are so many Poles packing up and leaving, and how can this be countered? The shocking number of Poles who want to leave the country made it all the easier with Poland joining the European Union has forced the government to take a long, hard look at itself in the mirror and come up with incentives for Poles to either stay or come back home. In 2017, 2.5 million Poles were living abroad. By 2023, the figure had fallen to 1.5 million. On social sites like Reddit, many foreign-living Poles expressed their desire to move back home now that they'd amassed a significant fortune. Many Poles stated that while it could be next to impossible for them to live a luxurious life on that money in other countries, they'd be able to enjoy a cushy living in Poland because of the lower cost of living. The United Kingdom has seen a boom in the cost of living, especially for the fuel crisis. This has seen prices of just about everything shoot up by several percent, and many people have been forced to sleep on the streets. Should a British Pole take the money that they have to barely survive in the United Kingdom and move back to Poland, they'd be able to live a much more comfortable life. That's been a recent change, however, and it doesn't solely have to do with comfort. It's a lot to do with security as well. While things in Poland are far from being perfect, they are getting better, and Poles are starting to consider moving back home. It's called the reverse brain drain, where Poles have learned as much as they could from other countries, worked to gain experience and exposure elsewhere, but implemented all of it in Poland. So in many ways, and a lot more than just one, immigration is a good thing, yet it's not discussed as much as immigration. And on that note, let's talk about what the UK seeks to lose with immigration coming to a standstill, especially after Brexit. In 2015, at a time when racist attacks against Eastern European migrants in the United Kingdom crossed an all-time high, Polish migrants announced a 24-hour strike. The conditions of the protest were fairly straightforward. They wouldn't take to the streets, they won't have placards all around town, and they won't be a public nuisance at all. Simply, they just wouldn't exist for that one day. This might seem like a counterintuitive protest to many and one that wouldn't really help the cause, but you have to look at the bigger picture here. The Polish labor force makes a majority of the labor force in several sectors in the United Kingdom. The hospitality sector and the farming sector are almost wholly dependent on Eastern Europeans. Perhaps that was the problem in the first place, the fact that British nationals thought it shouldn't be the case and that migrants were stealing their jobs. In response to the accusations, Polish migrants showed the British public what it felt like to live a day in Great Britain without Polish workers. For many, it was a collective holiday, whereas some Poles took their day off to donate blood at local blood banks. This symbolic gesture showcased that not only did Britain need Poles, but they'd given everything from their blood, sweat and tears to the United Kingdom. Surely they shouldn't be prosecuted for it. But then the referendum happened and it was announced that the United Kingdom would no longer be part of the EU, making it difficult for Poles to enter the country to seek employment. This was, in all fairness, what the majority of the United Kingdom wanted, and there was no looking back now. Yes, several Poles made good use of the EUSS scheme, which allowed them indefinite leave to remain in the country, but 2016 marked the end of the road for many Poles. Again, this is what the United Kingdom wanted, but could the British public have made a mistake they didn't fully comprehend until after Brexit had taken place? We talked about Little Poland, or Boston in the UK, a little while ago. A surprising statistic from the town was that when Leave voters were campaigning there, they received more support than any other town in England. Why was that? One theory suggested that it was because the Leave campaigners wanted to make Boston an example. What of? Well, Boston was a town that saw a great rise in its migrant population following free movement and Eastern Europeans coming into the United Kingdom. Boston had seen a majority of its jobs being taken over by Eastern European migrants. This was the case put forward by Leave campaigners, suggesting that free movement was detrimental to the job security British nationals should have had. Yet it's hard to imagine that the same people who wanted immigrants to leave the country were calling them back after lockdown restrictions were lifted. Truthfully, Polish migrants and the integral role they played and continue to play in building the UK's economy has been undermined by Euroscepticism. Leave voters believed that migrants were taking their jobs, yet when it came time to volunteer for the Pick for Britain campaign, They didn't. That's right, the Pick for Britain campaign was a massive failure for the simple reason that the British nationals the project was targeting never showed up to actually pick for Britain. On that note, actually, the farming industry as a whole was dominated by Polish nationals or Polish Britons. So was the hospitality industry and the construction industry. All in all, the UK's economy was built by Polish migrants. Maybe that's why the image of the Polish plumber gained prominence in 2004 when Poland joined the European Union. Ironically enough, the Polish plumber was both a point of contention and appreciation. The plumber was coming into Western Europe to steal their jobs, but he was also a hard-working migrant. Truly, the Polish plumber became a stereotype for Eastern European migrants, but at the end of the day, he was just doing his job. Let's talk about the construction industry for a second. This sector has faced chronic shortages of labor, but with the arrival of Polish workers. It met the demand for skilled tradespeople. We're talking about plumbers, electricians, and builders. This influx of labor not only bolstered productivity, but also helped keep wages competitive, contributed to lower building costs and overall economic growth. Many Polish workers have taken up jobs in seasonal agricultural work, filling vacancies in farms during critical harvesting times, thereby ensuring the continuity of food supply chains. Similarly, in the hospitality sector, they have filled numerous roles in restaurants, hotels, and other service industries which are vital to the UK's tourism economy. Polish immigrants have also supported the UK economy by boosting consumer demand as they settle and spend their income on housing, goods, and services. They stimulate local businesses and increase tax revenues. Many Polish nationals have also set up their own businesses, further enriching the economic landscape. About 11% of migrants in Britain work in the transport sector, 10% in agriculture, and 9% in the health sector. Poles make up more than 1/5 or 23% of all migrants from the EU in the UK. In March 2021, about 10,500 Poles worked in the NHS, the fourth most numerous non-British nationality after Indians, Filipinos, and Irish employees. Britain needs Polish migrants, but is it too little, too late now? In 2020, the former Polish ambassador to the UK, Arkady Ryszkowski, called on his compatriots to return to their home country. "We are waiting for you with open arms." When the Brexit debate was taking place and there were talks of a no-deal Brexit, Poland's Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki stated that he wanted to see more workers return from the UK to help its domestic economy grow. He said that more and more are coming back, and I'm pleased about that because there is a low level of unemployment in Poland. Give us our people back. He also said people who want to stay in the UK should be allowed to, and to be treated exactly as they are now, implying that Brexit should not hold any bearing on how everyday Poles in Britain are treated. Morawiecki felt the need to say that latter half because of a pressing concern, rise in racist attacks and hate crimes against Europeans. When the result of the referendum was read out, it became glaringly clear to the many migrant populations living in the United Kingdom, and we're not just talking about Poles, they need to have an exit strategy in place. Yes, there were several hopefuls who believed that Brexit would have no impact on the way they lived their everyday lives as honest, hard-working citizens. In hindsight, it shouldn't have, but it did. Now migrant populations were scared, and one by one they started planning their exit from the United Kingdom. Next stop was Germany. That's right, the Poles who did not readily go back to Poland decided to test their luck out elsewhere and settled in Germany. Yes, they scattered throughout Europe, but Germany is now morphing several of its towns into Little Poland. It wasn't solely because of Brexit, however. There were other reasons that compelled Poles into leaving the United Kingdom. The next reason was the absurdly high cost of living. A study by researchers from Middlesex University, the University of Glasgow, and the University of Sheffield surveyed 1,105 Polish key workers working in health and social care, transportation, education and childcare, utilities, and goods manufacturing. The researchers found that 28% of those surveyed believed that they had been discriminated against in the workplace. Polish health and social care workers told them that they had been treated unequally compared to other migrants. More than half of the respondents, 55%, said their mental health was deteriorated, 31% significantly, and 24% somewhat during the pandemic, while 40.2% found themselves in a worse financial situation. The group of researchers said in their report that those interviewed felt the UK government's rhetoric on immigration is hostile and inflammatory and would carry with it risks for further attacks on migrants. In 2020, it was reported that nearly 200,000 Poles had left Britain or were considering moving. Based on how pivotal Poles have been to the British economy, how long do you think it'll take before they realise the grave mistake they made?